Greetings, everyone, tonight. And now we're learning about the blessing, Oter Israel beTifara. Blessed are you, God, King of the universe, that you crown the Jews with Tifara, with glory. So the word Tifara, the word Tifara means glory, but the word Tifara also means beauty. So let's exactly see, what is this talking about? What does exactly God crown us? What type of crown does God give us? And what type of beauty is it speaking about here? And what's there to be happy about it? Because the purpose of these classes is supposed to be to remove our minds a little bit from the drab, disappointing, confusing, frustrating world, and to think of more positive things that are really going on, like the good gifts that God gives us, the faith that God has in us, and maybe most important of all, the partnership that God has with us and that we have with Hashem, which is the reason we're making these blessings in the first place, is to show and to strengthen our partnership with the Creator of the universe. Now, interestingly enough, in some strange way, God needs us. Of course, that's almost a blasphemous thing to say, but it's true. Hashem created the world in such a way that He wants us to be His partners. And in fact, we even say there's a sentence in Shiurim, the Song of Songs, where God calls us Tamati. He said, Pitchili, Achoti, Rayati, Yonati, Tamati. Pitchili. In Chabad, they even made a song about that. One of the Nigunim of Chabad. Kol dodi fake. The song of my beloved is knocking. Kol dodi fake. My beloved is knocking. Pitchili, open up. Excuse me. God wants us to open up to Him. He wants us to be His partners. Pitchili achoti rayoti yonati tamati. Open for me, my sister, my beloved, my dove, my pigeon, my dove, and tamati, my twin. Now, the word tamati means also my complete. Tam means to be complete. So we actually complete God, so to speak. This is a very deep Kabbalistic idea, but it's on the other hand, it's very simple, because it says in the beginning of the Bible that God made man in His image. B'Tselem Elokim Barat Adam, that God made man in His image. Now we know that God does not have an image. So what does it mean that we do have an image, that we have a form? So what does it mean that God made us in His image? So what it means is that Hashem, because of His great love for man, God put Himself into what's called 10 sfirot, 10 spheres. That's the whole secret of Kabbalah and the form of God, the 10 spheres of God, the sfirot, the 10 aspects of God's personality, is exactly corresponds to our 10 aspects of our personality, which can be summarized as Chachma, Bina, V'dat, our power of conception, of, if you want to call it, consciousness and understanding, and reality, to make this real. And then there's what's called the emotions, 7 emotions. Love and fear and tiferet and beauty is one of them. Balance is one of them. Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. There's four more. But suffice it to say that when we Jews do connect ourselves to the Creator by making blessings and by thinking properly about the Creator, so that makes the Creator more revealed in the world. And that's called Tiferet. That's called beauty. Because what is beauty? Beauty is explained in the works of Chassidut, that beauty is the uniting of opposites, or of different colors. When you have a painting that's just one color, you can't say it's beautiful. Beauty is contrast. When there's different combinations that are made, and these combinations, the more, if you want to call it opposite that they are, the more contrast that they are, that makes something that's beautiful, striking, beautiful. You see a beautiful sunset, it's only beautiful in relationship to the ground that's around it and the sky that's behind it, and etc. The rays that come out, the different colors, the yellow and the red and the blue sky and the green grass and the the dark ground, etc. So that's called beauty. And the more the things are opposite and that you can make harmony between them, the more beauty there is. And there's no greater opposite than the creation and the creator. The creation is limited. The creator is unlimited. The creation is limiting. The creator is unlimiting. The creation seems to scream out that there's no creator. Especially, perhaps the greatest proof, if you want to call it, that God does not exist is the fact that I exist and that I can say that God doesn't exist. Here I am saying it. I don't feel God. I don't see God. No creator. On the other hand, God is pure creator without the creation. Now that, even though it's wonderful and splendid, but in a way it's not really beautiful, because all there is the oneness of God. So the true beauty of godliness is when it's expressed in the creation. And when we can see that the sunset and that the ground and that the sky, not only is it beautiful in itself, but it's even more beautiful in contrast to the creator that's creating it all the time. When you see something infinite in everything, that brings out the beauty in it. And the greatest, like we said, the greatest contrast is between the creator, God, and man. Because man is created in the image of God. What does it mean, the image of God? That just like God feels, or the truth is that there's nothing except for God, so every person feels exactly the same thing. And there's people that you can talk to them about God and try to convince them about God. And we're talking about religious people that were brought up believing in God and that they learned the Bible and they don't believe in God. We have examples of it in the Torah, very striking and shocking examples. One of them is Elisha ben Avua. It says that Elisha ben Avua was one of the 4 great holy people that went into the secrets of the Torah together with Rabbi Akiva and 3 others, and that Elisha ben Avua experienced something that he understood to be an existence except for God, his own egotism. And he completely became an apostate, a total apostate. We're talking about a man that knew everything. He knew all of the books. He experienced the highest levels of revelation, and nevertheless, he couldn't be confused. Elisha ben Avua. The same thing it says by Yerovam ben Nevat. Where Yerovam ben Nevat, he said that God spoke to him and asked him, please repent. And he said, I'm not going to do it. If I can't be the number 1, I'm not going to do it. He didn't want to be together with King David. It says in heaven, I want to be number 1. King David can be with me. I'm not going to be with King David. Whatever the motivations are, God creates people purposely with egos. And the egos are screaming out, I'm God. Here I am. I feel myself. I exist. I'm real. The same feeling that God has. When a person really can integrate in his personality the fact that it's a creation and that he has an obligation to use all of the facets of his personality to serve the creator and to make this world a better place according to the creator's directions, that's called Tiferes. That's called beauty. It's the uniting of 2 opposites. Okay, what brings us to do a thing like that? What brings us to go against our nature? What brings us to go against nature itself? To go against, it used to be that science and philosophy were the biggest opposers of the oneness of God. There were great philosophers, even great Jewish philosophers, that totally denied the fact that there could be such a thing as a God that gives commandments or that cares about us, that wants about us. The famous people, I don't even really want to mention their name in these classes because it's not a comparative religion. And now we don't need things like that because everybody feels it in themselves anyway. Maybe these people were more articulate in explaining our egotism, but everybody feels the same thing. Here I am, I don't see God, I don't feel God. What power is it that can bring us to defy our own natures and give ourselves over to the Creator? What power is it? So it says that's what's called the crown. That's what's called the crown. In the language of Kabbalah, it's called Keter, the crown. It's one of the 10 spheres. It's the ability of the soul. It's the ability of the soul to connect to something that's above it and to bring that connection into reality. Into reality. We talked about Chachma, Bina, and Dat. Chachma is the power of the soul, which can be translated into faith. Faith, sensing there's something above understanding. Now, we're not talking about religious faith. We're not talking about that everybody knows they're going to die, and I went to Uncle Joe's funeral, and I saw that Uncle Joe used to be a last poor Yorick, a fellow of infinite jest. Yesterday was laughing and joking, and now all of a sudden they're putting him in the ground. So I can understand from that maybe this is going to happen to me. And maybe I can understand that there certainly is going to happen to me. So what should I do? So I make an investment in a spiritual. That's not really called faith. Maybe it's a business type of faith. Business also requires faith. Business, you're going to invest your money in something you don't know if it's going to, your own hard-earned money. You're going to invest it. You don't know if there's going to be any results. You're going to take the seeds that you have and put them in the ground and hope that they're going to grow up wheat. But you could take those seeds and make bread from it. It's an investment. Okay, so some people also in religion, they make an investment and they're worried about what's going to happen when they die or what's going to happen tomorrow or, So therefore they make a investment in something special. So that's a sort of a type of faith, but that's not the type of faith we're talking about. Here we're talking about a faith is, should I live for myself or should I live for the Creator? Should I do what I feel and think is best for me, or should I do what I feel and think is best for the Creator? Now you can say that's insane. Who would want to live for the Creator? Well, that's what Abraham did. That's the first Jew. That's the essence of what Judaism is. And God even tested Abraham 10 times to see if he really was living for the sake of the Creator or the creation. Now, you have to understand something here. I mean, the Creator, at least according to our definition, is creating everything. So we have to say that the Creator is okay. I mean, he's creating all these animals and all this life, and he's just flowing out this life for free. So if anybody believes in life, that life is a good thing, so the Creator is okay. The Creator is all right, and the Creator knows how to create, and he knows how to keep things alive, and he knows how to keep the world in order. So the Creator is doing a pretty good job of being good. In fact, the definition of good is from the Creator. Being connected to the Creator is also good. Now, but the problem is it's not exactly what we think is good all the time. Right? Some people think is good is what feels good. Or like the saying goes that God always gives us what we need, but he doesn't give us what we want, because a lot of times what we want is exactly what we don't need. But how can we connect ourselves to the Creator in a way that like Abraham did? That, by the way, is the reason we begin our prayers every day with the story of Abraham taking Isaac to sacrifice him. It's not because to show that Abraham was somewhere down deep a very a murderous person, or he was a very frustrated person. Exactly the opposite. God gave him Yitzchak, and God said, don't worry, I'm good. Just do what I say, and everything's going to be really good. And now take your son and kill him. And Abraham really thought that that's what he was going to do. He really did think he was going to take his son and kill him. How could he do a thing like that? It's against logic. It's against everything. But he said, what God wants is exactly what I need, what the world needs. It's certainly the opposite, totally opposite of what I want. No one wants to take their son and kill them, especially a big holy person like Abraham with a wonderful, pure son like Yitzchak. And you have to remember, Isaac was 37 years old at the time of the Akedah when he took him to sacrifice him. So this was totally against Abraham's ideas and his understanding, but Abraham understood that what God wants is good. Now, how can we come to that understanding? That understanding, that level, that's what's called the crown. That's what's called the crown. The crown is something which is above, totally above all understanding, totally above all logic, and connected totally to the Creator, to a different type of good. A different type of good. And that, connecting to that type of good, that's connecting to happiness. Because when a person tries to think about himself and tries to make himself great, that's the source of all depression and sadness and frustration if he doesn't get what he wants. And sometimes even if he does get what he wants. But being connected to the Creator and really truly being connected, that's the secret of happiness, doing what the Creator wants. And the Creator does have a definite will, what he wants. That's why he gave the Torah. So this is called the crown. Another way of looking at it, it's called Keter, but it's also called Bina, understanding. When we have a true understanding of what's going on, when we have a true understanding of how much the Creator loves us and that He creates us and that He provides for us, like we say, Melech, Ozer, O Moshiach, O Mogen, that God is He helps us and He protects us and He saves us and He provides a zone of Farnes Lakal, Meitiv Lakal, that God provides for everyone and He does good for everyone. So then the things that happen to us in life, first of all, we'll be able to take them in a whole different outlook, a whole different way of looking at things, perspective. Instead of looking at things from my perspective, my limited perspective, what I think and how I see things, instead we can say, listen, God knows what He's doing. He's doing for the best. The question is how I should react. That's how I should react. Should I get mad? Probably not. Should I be depressed? Almost certainly not. Right? 99.999% of the situations in the world it's better if you don't get angry. Maybe 0.00001 calls for getting angry. Very, very rare. You see that Moshe got angry a couple times and he got punished for it. Moshe got angry. Once in a while it was good though. He got angry in order to chastise the Jewish people. Being depressed is never called for. Having lust and desires, also the same thing. So, but when can we do it? That's Bina. That's Bina. That's understanding. When we have a proper understanding, that's the crown. Oter Israel, beTifara. That's what the crown of Israel, the crown which brings beauty. In other words, it brings beauty, it brings the uniting of all opposites. That suddenly we start to realize that this world, with all of the apparent difficulties in it, is really only half of the picture. And our job is to make it beautiful by putting the other half, the infinite half, into it. Then everything becomes harmonious. And that's one of the reasons why religious Jewish people, why we wear a head covering. A head covering is called a yarmulke. Yarmulke means yire malka, the fear of the king. Because we're afraid of doing something wrong. We're afraid of being an egotist. We're afraid of being rash and not thinking properly, not having bina, not having proper understanding. When a person has proper understanding, then his emotions fall into place. Like the example is given that if someone comes up to someone else and spits in their face and curses them and yells at them and slaps them, so the person who gets slapped and cursed is very angry. If someone comes over to this person who's the victim and says, listen, have mercy on this poor guy, just a terrible tragedy happened to him, his whole house burned down, and his family's in the hospital. He's really just out of his mind, crazy. So suddenly you feel very merciful.
Okay.
And the mercy can even arouse your love and your care for this person that you just hated him because he spit at you and he told you. But understanding gives you a whole different outlook of every situation. There's a story in the Talmud about a person called Eliezer ben Dordaya. Eliezer ben Dordaya said he was a big sinner. He had this one particular sin that he really liked to do. He was he chased after this one particular pleasure, and one time he ran after this pleasure. He heard that it was a beautiful woman that he was, and he finally found this woman. And he was climbing up on a ladder, it says, to get her. She was on the beds and the mattresses. And suddenly she sneezed. I'm saying it in a nice way. She sneezed. And she said the same way that this sneeze went out and it won't come back in, the same thing, Eliezer ben Dordaya has gone out from God and he'll never be able to come back in. Suddenly, all of a sudden, he caught himself and he realized, what is happening here? What have I done? She's right. And it said that he had such deep regrets for everything that he did that he would have liked to have repented, but his whole being and his whole body was in tune with doing these forbidden things. But on the other hand, his soul told him he has to stop, and he couldn't, and he died. It says his soul went out of his body. And that, I think it was Rabbi Akiva, he sensed it at the same time, or he heard the story, and he said some people, they can reach the truth in just 1 second. They get the world, it says in 1 second, Kones Olamo b'sha'achat, in just 1 moment. In other words, suddenly he came to a level of understanding, where his understanding made him look at the whole world and look at himself totally differently. And that's supposed to be the idea of wearing a kippah. Why we wear a kippah? A kippah is supposed to be worn to remind us that there's something above our understanding, an understanding above our selfish understanding. And that there's a level of understanding that we can come to by having awe of the Creator that will come to make us understand that our first impulses are not always what's right. Our first urges are not always our guide. Maybe we can call this in normal human intellect or human personality, maybe we can call this conscience to a certain degree. I know Professor Viktor Frankl puts a tremendous emphasis on this idea of conscience. Well, in Hebrew, it even works out better because the word for conscience is the word matzpun, which is almost the same word as compass. A compass that shows you directions, that's a matzpen. A matzpen. And also what is secret, what is hidden from us, is called tzafun. So it's the same exact letters. In other words, a good which is concealed from us can be sensed by our conscience, and that can be a compass for us in our life to tell us where to go. Somewhat like navigators on the sea, they look up at the stars, they can see, by that they can get a direction where they should go, which is not the case if they're just down here too low. They can't get a proper perspective of what's happening. So that's the idea of the kippah, the yarmulke that's put on a Jew's head. And also it's the idea of a talit, the talit that Jewish men wear, the prayer shawl. It's also supposed to put a person inside of a level of understanding which is above his normal level of understanding. That's the crown. That's his level of the crown. So that's what it means, Oter Israel beTifara, that God crowns the Jewish people with beauty. In other words, by means of having this crown, this awareness of what is right and wrong above our normal urges and senses, by having this sense, that's called the crown. That's what's above our head. That's also symbolized by the kippah that we wear on our head, the yarmulke, our hat. And also by the talit, as that makes beauty. In other words, it makes it so that we can utilize the regular mundane parts of creation to connect them with the Creator. Perhaps one of the one of the best examples of this was the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. I mean, and I personally think that there's nobody as beautiful created as the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Just simply a very beautiful person, but he suffered terribly in his life. And there's a couple of stories that are told about him which sort of really indicate this. One of them is that in the days of Stalin, may his name be blotted out forever, he killed millions, tens of millions of people, but his public enemy number one was the Schneersinskis, the Chabad movement. The Schneersinski, led by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, whose last name was Schneerson. So eventually the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was imprisoned and he was sentenced to death. He was supposed to be executed the first night that he was taken in. But there was a mistake, and because of that mistake, as he wasn't killed the first night, and it ended up that just a couple of weeks later he got out. It was a whole series of amazing miracles. But when he went into prison, he made a firm resolution that he was not going to be afraid or affected at all by his captors, by the prison guards. Now, the prison guards were murderers, and they had murdered tens and tens of thousands of people. It was a prison that was in Leningrad, Lublinka prison, and that when he was there, you could hear in the nighttime, he said every 10 seconds a door would open, someone would scream, someone would be dragged down, you'd hear a shot, and there would be quiet. And the lowest type of people, really murderers, simply murderers, and they really wanted to murder him. But nevertheless, he made a firm resolution in his mind that he was not going to be affected by them. And this resolution that he made, that he wasn't going to be affected by them, but only by the Creator, I think we talked about this, only by God, that suddenly he became more certain of God's existence than he did of even his own existence. And as his whole existence just depended on the existence of God. And that he could not only go against, but even speak against or even think against Hashem, against God. Because God was so real to him, but the reality was not because of something that he saw or that he could experience. It was something that he understood so deeply that the experience was even more real than anything in this world. And there's a story that before he was taken to prison, that he was taken by the communists. This is in the year when his father passed away in 1920. He was taken into prison in 1927, but in 1920 he was taken to interrogation by the communists. The communists in those days were not as powerful or as dangerous as they became as the years went on. But they took him to interrogation, and the people interrogating him were Jews. And some of them were even Chabad, that had been in the Chabad, and they left Judaism because communism was the promise of the world. It was going to make equal equality for everyone and brotherhood, and like Napoleon wanted. But even more so, there was going to be because there wasn't going to be any money, and everyone would work according to their ability and receive according to their need, and etc., etc. So he was taken into interrogation. So they said to him, "Tell us, Rabbi, that you say that there's God, do you believe it or do you know it?" And so he said, "I know it." They said, "You know that there's God?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Well, if you know that there's God, then can you prove it to us?" They were all smirking. And he said, "Yes, I can." He said, "Well, prove it to us. Let's see you." So he said, "Well, I'm surprised at you. Don't you know that there's a science which is called astronomy? And astronomy, you can see the stars. Now, a normal person can't see the stars. You can't see the stars' movements, the planets. But if you go into a planetarium, an observatory, and there's a telescope, and if it's a clear night, then you can be educated by an astronomer that he can teach you what you see, and you can see it. The same thing with me. You want to see God, well, you have to go into the proper place, which is Torah. You have to be a clear night. You have to eat kosher food. You have to look through the commandments properly, and then when you do that and you look properly through the Torah, and it's clear you've cleared yourself up by learning, by eating properly, eating kosher food, and doing the commandments, then I'll be able to explain to you, you'll be able to see God. So they said, well, that's ridiculous. You want us to eat kosher food before we believe in God? First, we'll believe in God, convince us there's God, and then we'll eat kosher food. So he said, I'm really amazed at you. He said that I happen to know that there is a new science that they're developing, which is called nutrition. It used to be that people thought that a human being is just like a furnace. You just throw any type of food in, and it just burns up, and that's the. So, but then they said, no, they discovered that there's nutrition in food. There's vitamins, and there's minerals, and there's nutrients. But it takes a while to learn this. It takes months to learn what are the nutrients that are in the food. Now, if a person said, well, I'm not going to eat until I know what the nutrients are, isn't that ridiculous? The person would die. So, of course, first of all, you eat, and then you understand. The same thing. First of all, do the commandments and keep kosher, and then I'll explain it to you. So the Rebbe said that I saw that I did not convince them, but I saw that I impressed them very much, that it made a big effect on them. What does it mean? By proper understanding, you can look at the whole world in a total different way. And if only these people would have understood properly, these communists, it could have potentially saved tens of millions of lives. These key people killed tens of millions of people just because they thought differently than them. Differently. But if you have a proper understanding of what it is and realize that God also contains all opposites, so if somebody thinks opposite than you, so it just means that you just have to try to explain to them better. There's no explanation unless the person is an outright danger to you. And so there we have the idea of Oter Israel beTifara, the head of a person. That's what differentiates a person from an animal. It's what keeps a person upright. It's what keeps man connected to the creator of the universe. By this crown that every human being has on them, namely a power of understanding, the power of conscience, the power of awareness of right and wrong, of something which is higher than us. And this causes beauty. This makes a beautiful world, a world which is filled with love and appreciation. Because in the end, what is love? To appreciate and to see the good in everything, and to appreciate and to see the challenge which is in everything, and to appreciate and to see the opportunity which is found in everything. And that is the crown of the Jewish people, to see this according to the Torah, to see this according to the way the Creator wants us to see it, and to be partners with the Creator, and to make this amazing harmony in the world, that's a blessing from God that we thank God for every day, and we ask God to give us more. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you, God, revealed are you, God, our power, the King of the universe, that you crown the Jewish people, Yisrael, with tifora, with beauty. And that's the job of the Jewish people. That's the beauty of the Jewish people. The Jewish people, by the way, Yisrael, are the letters Li Rosh. To me, they are the head. The Jewish people are the head of the world, and we're also connected to a God's head. We're united with them, which is the whole idea of Chabad Hasidut. Chabad is Chachma Bina Dat, the aspects of the head, so that we can make this world a beautiful world, a harmonious world, and what the classes are about, a happy world, to feel that God is one, and He wants us to bring this oneness into everything we do. So, God bless you all. You should have a good week, and realize the amazing crown we have on our head, the amazing power we have to make beauty in the world, and that's the job of Yisrael, Oter Israel beTifara. Any questions? Comments? Well, I don't hear anybody, but I hope you heard me. So usually I have a screen over here or this. All right, so if you didn't hear me and you want me to do it again, as you can call me up. But if you did, thank you very much, everyone. God bless you all. And I look forward to speaking to you next week. And next week, I hope I'll be able to see you also. Here I'm sitting just with my faith that people are listening to me and that they see me.